But they're getting ready for the first time ever to play in the CBL, one of the oldest leagues in the state, since the 20s, and used to play the Santa Ana schools. And now they're getting ready to play CBL. Back in the day, I mean, that was it. We were Division I. Everyone else was the stepchild. Bruick used to call it Division 99.
Division 9, called Cajon in '87 the cheese champions,
the
I
cheese
believe.
champions.
Coach Pedersen probably doesn't want to hear that.
No, but he's got much respect for Coach Pedersen. We've talked about that, loves him like that. But that's how Dick used to do it, because he stepped it up. But when I got
it instilled pride in the kids, and it instilled pride in his coaches.
Oh yeah.
And you got some swag.
Yeah.
And we needed that because, I mean, to be honest with you, at FOI, I don't think we were as talented as the team.
Oh, never.
Playing.
We outworked.
I don't think we were as talented as San Gregonia with Ronnie Rivers, or Eisenhower with a slew of athletes.
Oh man, we know that.
And if we didn't have a swagger, if we didn't have that chip on our shoulder, I mean, both as coaches,
and as players,
I don't think Dick could have had the success. Because he taught us, we're not as good, so we better work harder.
We outworked everyone.
Both
I'd
coaches
have to agree with that.
And players.
No, I agree with that.
And I think Dick probably demanded more from his coaching staff than he did from the players, to be honest with you.
Well,
I saw many a coach. Dick didn't just take you over to the track for a little lecture like Kevin did. You got lectured right in front of your players.
Oh, no, we know.
And then Dick would walk away and you'd tell your players, see what you guys just got me in trouble?
God bless you.
Let's step it up.
Now good point. See, Coach Nacsin worked a couple months with Coach Logan, worked with Coach Bruick. Now, Bruick set the standard, like you said, was a college coach. What a lot of people don't know in the 80s and 90s, they learned the secret of the off-season lifting. And he made it was demanding, that everyone had to do it. He didn't care if you played baseball, wrestling, whatever you did, you just had to learn that.
And let's give a little credit, too. Coach Bruick took almost all that stuff from Coach Ansich at St. Paul.
But he helped develop it, too, at that time. And
Ansich
was able enough to see that. What I noticed, now you work with Logan. Won the state champs. You got a chance to see that. I saw interesting when I did my clinic a couple years back. I was going to see Stan, going to see some of the coaches, and I show up one day. Taylor Martinez is down from Nebraska. I get to watch the practice. Now, usually a closed practice, parents only, and you know how that is. I'm real stressful on that. We got that from our paranoid days as coaches back in the day. So anyway, I watched. They break down the practice. They do a 2-hour practice, and all of a sudden, what's that thing? They do 6 stations of 4-minute stations. So they just did a 2-hour practice. Now they're going to do back pedals in one station, hopping cones in another station, angle sprints in another station, and then they do.
You stay with your guys though.
Yeah. Okay.
Like
a 40-yard sprint, 20-yard sprint.
I would stay with my guys.
So they got 6 5-minute stations they're doing. This is a Corona Centennial, and then I'm thinking practice is over. Wrong. Back on the field. 2-minute warning. Was that just? Okay, when you're as dead as it can be, now we want to see you perform?
Well,
what's the philosophy on that, you think? I mean, should have asked Aaron that. God dang it.
The biggest thing that I had to get used to going with Matt at Centennial was the tempo of the practice. At Cajon,
and that's what Emerson does.
We tend to slow things down and teach a lot more, whereas Matt just says it's reps, up tempo. That's how we get in shape. That's how we beat people. It's all a philosophy.
It's a cardio.
It's cardio. It's mental.
John, kind of back in the day, John Wooden. That was his rule. He would run the basketball guys for 2 hours, and he'd ask, for 2 hours, you're going to be moving and no one to stop, and then we're going to outwork.
And Kevin runs the same up-tempo practice. Coach Emerson here at Valley College.
That's what I was thinking.
And I had, from having my training with Coach Logan, it was perfect to come here. I didn't miss a beat. Almost the same style of practice.
Gotcha.
It was.
And I like that. I noticed that when I worked here in that day. That was the new Valley as opposed to the old Valley was the up-tempo. Right. And I think they're going in the right direction. They get some kids in now. The out-of-state tuition thing, they just passed 2 years ago. They couldn't do that. They used to, being bordered, Victorville and Antelope Valley used to steal a lot of the talent from Nevada and stuff like that. So now, they're sticking more to the local. And you remember the recruiting was huge.
Right.
Guys from Florida, guys from Arizona, because a lot of people don't know is that there's not that many JC schools in the country.
No.
You know what I mean? No. Division III is huge back east and Wisconsin stuff.
Right.
So junior college, so if you didn't go D1, you went D2, D3, in those schools. But out here, it's more so.
And it helped that, Coach Farrell was best friends with Dennis Erickson. And if they had some ineligible players, he could send them out here.
Miami, that's true. See, Clay's giving a little history that a lot of people don't know. Coach Farrell, I didn't get into Smedley on that because I don't want to talk about recruiting or anything like that, but genius. Smedley brings recruiting Carl Farrell, who's offensive coordinator out of Idaho with Dennis Erickson. The Dennis Erickson for the Miami Hurricanes, also Oregon State and 49ers, right? 49ers and stuff.
ASU.
So I golfed with Erickson. True story. They did a golf tournament I golfed with Erickson. He shows up no golf clubs. Uses mine, we play, but hey, we're in a golf tournament, we bring in these 8 D1 coaches, and like you said, that helped. And because we get this stud kid out of Miami in that 92 national championship team they had at Valley, he comes here, can't remember the kid's name, stud, I'll have to ask coach on that
There were
later.
about 4 or 5 of them.
Yeah, he comes here, oh yeah, when I played there was about 8. And then he gets pipeline back to Miami and goes into the pros. So that's a good point. So like I said, he knew how to hire assistants.
Well, too, the
But
big,
that's what out of state was huge.
right, because the big dogs, you know, the Miamis and that, if they had a kid that was ineligible and they didn't want to stick them at a JC that was close to, you know, Florida or South Carolina, they won't come out here. They could kind of hide them away from those schools.
Because we're so diluted. You know, there's some
Well,
schools,
you know, if they're going to lose them to somebody, they'd rather lose them to USC than to Florida, who's their, you know, their rival.
Good point.
So they
Great.
can send them
and
out
that's
here.
good thinking. See, and I remember talking to Leonard Russell, who played at Long Beach State, and goes on to play for the Minnesota Vikings, plays at Arizona State for 1 year. He said he didn't have the grades coming out of Long Beach Poly. So he's got a ride to Arizona State. They pipeline him to Mount Sac. I ended up playing him in a bowl that year in that game in 87, 88, whatever it was. He only does 1 year at Arizona State. Boom, goes right into the pros, just like Johnny Thomas. So,
awesome.
Real quick, so what's your memories? Let me give you a favorite moment. Memory as a kid, Kaiser Steel Mill, the liquor stores. What do you remember about that? Any of that stuff? You know?
Oh, it was such a different place and such a different time. The mill was everything. You know, I can remember Thursdays.
Yeah,
you know,
Thursdays were huge, man.
All the liquor stores, the guys, the mill guys, all got paid on Thursday,
I know,
and they cashed their checks at the stores, and it just became this like carnival.
It was a carnival. I mean, it was everything. It was
you
huge. It
know?
was huge.
People were selling stuff, you know, and food, and
Yeah.
I mean, it was like a little carnival.
And like you said, Coach Powell, I didn't know. Coach Powell and Coach Blumenthal both worked at Kaiser Stillman. He was telling me in the day they would bet money on the games. You know what I mean? And he validated all that for us. It was such a big rival, you know, doing that. So, what do you think it's the shifted? Do you think Rev's going to be? Rev was in the state. Rev's just like Corona Centennial. They played Bruick, being his son, playing. You know, where the tide shifted a little bit towards Vista Marietta. You know, Narco, Corona, and since when we were growing up. You know what I mean? So what do you think the reason is for that?
Well, out here, you know, we were all one-horse towns, and it was such a, as you can remember, just I've tell my kids about it because they're athletes now, and I wish they could have experienced
What we did.
What we did, you know. 10,
More town
10,
pride.
15,000 people at a football game, you know.
Yeah. 30 at the biggest game ever in Anaheim. Yeah.
Going to places for lunch on a Friday with our Steelers shirt
Free
on,
food.
not having to pay for lunch.
Free food.
You know,
Yeah. And people,
I mean, you were a minor celebrity, and it didn't matter. It wasn't just football. I mean, it was
no, it
whatever
was
you
town
played.
pride, everything. Yeah, you're right.
I mean,
wrestling.
It was a big deal, and I mean,
They don't
the
do
other
that.
schools had pride too, you know, because if we wore our Letterman jacket over to Fiesta Village or something, and there was some Eisenhower Colton guys that had their jackets on,
Well, there could be some swinging.
It could,
Well, not the swings you see at a park.
Yeah,
okay,
there
but
could
was some
have been a
swinging.
problem.
Yeah,
there could have been a problem.
There was some issues.
There was intense, you know, town pride, and even
You don't see that no more. Though.
no,
You
and
don't
even
see
back then, I didn't feel that because I had friends that were, you know, living in San Bernardino and went to Aquinas and went to Pacific, which was, believe it or not, the wealthy school back then in San Bernardino.
No.
And but because they always had multi schools, I think they were already, you know, where we're at now in the Inland Empire.
So they were easy. That was no big transformation.
We
for
didn't
them.
have any choices either. You lived in Fontana. You went to Fontana.
You went to Fontana or you went to Birch?
Nowadays, you know, and
Birch was continuation school, so you didn't want to go there.
No. Nowadays, if you're an athlete, and I see nothing wrong with this personally, you need to go where you can play to a system you like. It's almost like going to a college now. You need to choose a place that's best for you, you know, as a player, and the parent, you know, as.
And you know, you just brings up a good point I want to bring up. You know, being a coach for so many years, and I just read a thing about that on Santa Margarita and Mission Viejo. Their number one team in the nation right now is Santa Margarita. But what happened was, that's a great point. Nowadays, the rules are in the CIF is, and back in the day, you couldn't do this. You couldn't change.
No.
Till your first semester of your sophomore year, you can decide which you want to be your home school and not even have to live in the town.
No.
I mean,
you can play your freshman year, and it's called the freshman rule. You can play your freshman year, and then after that year, you can go somewhere else
before the
with no restrictions.
I mean, how great is
It's
that?
the first day of school is the day.
What is that? I mean,
Yeah.
that's not even right. I mean, that's great. So recruiting is huge now.
Somebody explained it to me, a coach, though. It's like when you got married, is that the first girl you ever dated? Sometimes you got to find the right place.
You're right. It's not always a good fit, right? I got you.
But with all this,
Dennis,
like you said,
we're running out of room. We need to wrap it up soon.
Bob, 2 minutes. 1 minute, okay? We good?
Yep.
All right, 1 minute. So I want to go into this. Good point. So here's what I didn't like. Santa Margarita, this is a good point for the time. Santa Margarita, if you're in a Catholic school, and because it's Catholic school, they got different rules. You don't have to live in the area. You can go there.
Right.
Okay, get sponsored, do whatever you want. They allow you to if you live in a homeschool and you decide you don't like this Catholic school, after the third game, if you lived in Mission Viejo, you can take yourself out of the Catholic school, Santa Margarita, watch that, and go to Mission Viejo, and there's no rule behind that because it's amongst the principals.
well, you have a date now. There's a new rule. I'm not exactly sure what.
Yeah,
the
I'm not
date
at is either,
But
so-
there's a date. I believe it's October 1st.
Okay.
Which just passed.
Yeah, so they got that. So, Coach, real quick, last one. Thanks for coming in. I got my guest, Clay Nacsin, good friend. Greatest coach moment that you have to experience in high school, college, anything. What is it that you remember?
Greatest coaching moment, probably when I was the head baseball coach at Cajon High School. They hadn't won an outright league championship since 1976, and in 1997 we won the SAL.
Wow.
And it was a big deal.
All right.
Because Cajon was kind of a football school, and when I took over the program, it was in bad shape.
And you turned a page on that and helped them. Then you stayed in. You've been there for how many years now?
22 years.
22 years at Cajon High School. Brought me over there too. God bless you. So this is my good friend Clay Nacsin. We're out. I want to thank you guys. I hope you enjoyed the show, and we'll be talking to you soon. Bye-bye. All right, we're good. So we'll jump in. So then we get, I forget. Sorry, Bob. I get going.